Let's go back now to our top story in the Middle East, where Hezbollah says it's fired dozens of missiles into Israel in retaliation for days of repeated cross-border attacks. Israel has imposed restrictions on civilian gatherings in the north of the country up to the Lebanese border. It said that the order came in anticipation of retaliatory attacks by Hezbollah. This is after Israeli planes carried out fresh airstrikes on targets in southern Lebanon. I think we can show you pictures now of northern Israel. This is a suburb. Oh no, is this southern Lebanon? Oh no, sorry, we've got the wrong indicator there on the screen. But this is northern Israel. This is the aftermath of an airstrike in northern Israel, in a suburb out on the outskirts of Haifa, the city on the coast there. And this is towards the north, towards the Lebanese border. We have also had a statement from the IDF saying that they are currently striking southern Lebanon, and they're hitting targets, and they're saying that those strikes are going to continue and they're going to intensify. So a lot of exchange of fire this morning across the border between Israel and Lebanon. Let's speak now to Hugo Bachega and Paul Adams. Hugo joins us from Beirut, Paul Adams from Jerusalem. To you first, Hugo, just talk us through what's going on in southern Lebanon today.
Yeah, Lucy, so earlier today, the Hezbollah, which is this powerful militant political party based here in Lebanon, said it had carried out an initial response to that attack a few days ago, targeting pages and walkie-talkies used by the group, an attack widely believed to have been carried out by Israel. And we've seen that there were dozens, according to the Israeli military, more than 100 rockets fired by Hezbollah in that attack. And in response, we've seen that the Israeli military said it was carrying out strikes on Hezbollah positions in Lebanon. I think it was interesting that the Israeli military said it was striking positions across the country, suggesting that these attacks were happening not only in southern Lebanon, where most of these Israeli attacks have happened. Now, obviously, the fear here, the speculation is that Israel may be planning a wider offensive against Hezbollah after almost a year of these cross-border attacks. And we've seen that there were those explosions targeting the group's communication systems across the country. Then on Friday, there was an Israeli airstrike that essentially decimated the military command of Hezbollah's main fighting unit. So it's been a humiliating few days for Hezbollah. The group has vowed to respond. I was yesterday in Dahir, which is Hezbollah's stronghold here in southern Beirut, and people were telling us that they are going to resist despite those Israeli attacks. And the fear here is that Lebanon is being dragged into a conflict with Israel that is not in the country's interest, a conflict that could be devastating for this country.
And just to explain, Hugo, because there has been exchange of fire across this border throughout the past year, hasn't there, since that October the 7th attack. But this is more significant, isn't it? It's more intense today and yesterday, is it?
Exactly, and this obviously follows the decision by the Israeli government to add the return of displaced residents from communities in northern Israel as a war goal. And they say that these attacks are going to continue, they're going to intensify. Tens of thousands of residents have been displaced in northern Israel because of these attacks that have been carried out by Hezbollah. So there is speculation that the Israeli military could even carry out a ground invasion of southern Lebanon to try to create a buffer zone in the south of the country and push Hezbollah fighters away from the border. So we've seen that countries are urging citizens to leave Lebanon. There has been some diplomatic activity to try to de-escalate tensions, and Hezbollah has been saying that these attacks are going to continue. They say that this campaign by the group is in solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza, and they say that these attacks are going to continue unless there is a ceasefire in Gaza. Now, we know that all recent efforts to try to reach a deal have failed. That was the main hope, to try to de-escalate tensions here. And again, the fear is that we could be seeing the beginning of a wider Israeli offensive against the group.
Yes, OK, thank you very much, Hugo Pacheco, for us there in Beirut. Let's bring in Paul Adams for us now, who is in Jerusalem. And as well, as we were talking to Hugo, we've been looking at these pictures, these images of this airstrike and its aftermath in northern Israel. They had these warnings, people to stay at home, hadn't they, or to not have these large gatherings. Presumably a lot of people have left the area as well. Paul, are you hearing about any injuries or even deaths in the area?
There have been reports this morning of minor injuries, and we have certainly seen images of a couple of private homes that have been set on fire. Now, Hezbollah said that it had targeted an airbase and a military industrial complex. We haven't had any reports to suggest that either of those two things have actually happened. But certainly the missile strikes this morning, the rocket attacks this morning, do seem to have been deeper into Israel than many of the previous Hezbollah strikes. There's something in excess of 8,000 rockets have already been fired in the course of the last better part of 12 months. With another 100 or so overnight, and some of those landing in the vicinity of Haifa, and also reports of simultaneous attacks coming from the east, from Iraq, and possibly also from Yemen. So it does seem as though this latest wave of attacks may have been somewhat coordinated. As you say, the impact on the civilian population is considerable. Around 60,000 or so Israeli civilians have been away from their homes for the past 11 months. No additional evacuations ordered so far, but we did see yesterday the authorities closing all schools from Haifa north. That is a huge area, and that is an indication of the level of threat that Israel still feels that Hezbollah poses, despite what the government here regards as having been an extraordinarily successful few days for Israel in its battle with Hezbollah.
And Hezbollah does have long-range missiles, doesn't it? And we're seeing these attacks reportedly today sort of further into Israel than we have seen previously. Is that correct?
Yes, look, we've had at various times over the past 12 months moments when it seemed as though each side was upping the ante. This is another of those moments. As you say, Hezbollah have rockets capable of reaching pretty much anywhere in Israel. And the fear, of course, is that at some point it might decide to try and target the centre of the country, Tel Aviv perhaps. That would mark a very, very significant escalation in the conflict. So, you know, they will be watching the latest salvos, seeing where they're landing, and trying to get a sense of how ambitious Hezbollah is. The conventional wisdom up to now remains that Hezbollah and their Iranian backers are not interested in an all-out war with Israel, a war that they would almost certainly lose, that would result almost certainly in Israel's occupation of southern Lebanon and the destruction of that vast, potent missile arsenal. That is not an asset which Iran is willing to give up, you know, with just for no good reason. So at the moment, there is a sense that this is still somewhat within the parameters of what we have seen over the past 12 months, but teetering on the edge of something different.